This year's Public History Prize winner is JC Niala for the project 1918 Allotment, and I'm delighted that JC is with me now. Hi, JC.
Hi, Henry. How are you doing?
I'm very good, and congratulations again. It's a fascinating project, and I'm really looking forward to finding out a bit more about it today.
Thank you.
So could you just give us a really quick overview of what the project was, and really when you had the idea?
So the project took place during the growing season of 2021, and the idea was to recreate an allotment in the style of the year 1918. And I very much knew I wanted to do something from the year 1918 because I'm a World War I historian. And it was a convergence of two things. During especially the early lockdowns and the pandemics, people started growing. I don't know if you remember, but the internet kind of turned into a bit of a virtual garden with seed banks were selling out, and people were growing plants for the first time in their lives, a lot of them. But unlike other periods of history, the government did not co-opt this. So unlike Dig for Dora in World War I or Dig for Victory in World War II, there was no main kind of government project to get people growing during a time of national crisis. And I'd written a paper about this, and so I thought it would be interesting to actually respond to that by growing during the pandemic. And while I was growing, think about the 1918-1919 pandemic and also the end of World War I.
So it sounds as though then this was very much a confluence between your research and this public activity. So you'd written a paper about allotments, and then there's the idea to actually go away and grow something. Can you say a little bit more about that link between the project and your PhD research?
Okay, so one of the things that I was very interested in with regards to my PhD research is the intersection of the public imagination and policy and through time, and how that actually interacts. So in my PhD research, even though I'm looking at allotments, I also look at guerrilla gardeners, because it's the imagination that people have of nature that either influences public policy, leading to things like the Allotment Act, which has had many different iterations, or it might be people that are using growing as a way of protesting in the form of, guerrilla gardeners, the diggers, the Chartists. So I wanted to actually understand it by trying to embody some of that history. The project took place on elder stubs charity allotments in Oxford, and there have been people growing on that land for over 100 years. So it may sound a little bit woo-woo, but I really did feel that as I was putting my hands into the soil, I was stretching back over 100 years and interacting with people who'd grown on that land.
And this link also between the history and the research that you've done, but also that practical element to your research. I know that you describe yourself as an anthropologist, a historian, and a poet. How do those different aspects of your own identity combine, and how did that play out in this project?
So I think the anthropology gave me the tools of participant observation, learning how to carry out research while you're growing alongside other people. The poetry intersects directly with history, because what got me interested in World War I in the first place was Siegfried Sassoon, Wilfred Owen, these great World War I poets. And that started when I was a teenager, and I really wanted to understand and make sense of their experiences. And so, history was a route to do that. Also, because my heritage is African, I got very interested in what happened on the African fronts, particularly East Africa, which is, a period of history that unfortunately has not had as much attention than it should do. And so when I was working on the 1918 allotment, it allowed me to explore all of those themes. But I also learned something incredibly profound, which is the kind of social and oral histories you can capture when you do a public project. So people started traveling to the site from all over the country and telling me stories of, their fathers and grandfathers who were wartime allotmenteers. And that was a huge learning for me. And I ended up with lots and lots of, stories and histories that I otherwise would not have been able to engage with.
And of course, this was a long-term project. I mean, you mentioned this is through a whole growing season. You've obviously had to sort of, the seed of the project is at the very beginning of the year, but then you're carrying this out. And I know that you interspersed this with a number of public events. So what sort of format did those take?
So this is where some of the poetry came in. I was commissioned to write poetry alongside the project. So people came to the site, and for some of it, as I said, they were sharing their stories with me. Some of it I was reciting some of the poetry, and then they literally got to eat my research because they ate food from from the crops. And because I was using heritage seeds, again, it was another way of literally interacting with history because they were seeds from that era.
Oh, fantastic. And what sort of response did you get then from the people that visited? You've explained that for some they were able to share those family stories. Were there other responses that really stand out?
I was amazed how much people wanted to hear about World War One on the East African front. People had no idea. Most, in fact, I'd say the vast majority of people who came didn't even know that World War One happened there, and there was huge interest. People were very moved, but it also turned into a bit of a living memorial. So there were people who came to remember those that they had lost during the COVID-19 pandemic, and that links back to the 1918-1919 pandemic. And I think what the response helped me to understand is that um, people are looking for spaces in which that they can have living histories and remember and learn about histories. And I think because it was food and because people were sharing food together and it was in a site where living things were growing, it was somehow quite a democratic space that allowed people to, you could have somebody sitting next to somebody else who had a father or a grandfather who was a wartime allotmenteer, but they could be sat next to somebody for whom it was deeply personal. They were remembering someone they had lost, and the space allowed them to do that.
Yeah, fascinating. And again, I think it really tells something about the way that those different participants, they seem to have really engaged this on multiple levels. Coming back to your PhD, I know that you are very close to completion. So a horrible question, I know, but what does the future hold, do you think? I mean, either in terms of the research or in terms of the public engagement side. I presume you've still got the allotment. Are you intending to keep this going into perpetuity?
So I'm kind of taking the allotment on tour in a way. So a future plan is I have just finished the first draft of a play, funnily enough, called 1918. And it's because of the interest that I saw people had in the East African front in World War One. So it's set on the East African front, and there's 10 minutes of the play is going to be produced in the autumn, and I'm hoping that we can take it to full production, because yeah, I was literally blown away with how much people wanted to know and engage with that history.
Fantastic. And in terms of the PhD, you mentioned that it's almost there, so we'll be
Yes.
expecting to read more about the history of allotments in general as well.
Yes, so as you know, all being well, yeah, we're very much nearly there. Going to submit, hopefully be sitting my viva in the autumn, and then it'll be thinking about, monograph and that sort of thing.
Oh, fantastic. And I say the Public History Prize, it's designed to recognise innovation and taking research beyond the academy. And I think this project is such a good example of that. So JC, congratulations again for winning the 2022 Social History Society Pamcock's Public History Prize, which is a very long title. It's very well deserved, and we look forward to seeing more in the future.
And I just wanted to say thank you. And I really feel very well supported by, the Social History Society, and it's my home as a historian, so I'm so grateful for it.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Lovely to chat.
Thank you.